letterpress. Letterpress printing is a technique of relief printing using a printing press, a process by which many copies are produced by repeated direct impression of an inked raised surface against sheets or a continuous roll of paper. A worker composes and locks mobile type into the bed or chase of a press, inks it and presses paper against it to transfer the ink from the type, which creates an impression on the paper. In practice, letterpress also includes other forms of relief printing with printing presses, such as wood engravings, photo etched zinc cuts, it is also called plates, and linoleum blocks, which can be used alongside metal type or wood type in a single operation, as well as stereotypes and electrotypes of type and blocks. With certain letterpress units, it is also possible to join mobile type with slugs cast using hot metal typesetting. In theory, anything that is type high or 0.918 inches can be printed using letterpress. Letterpress printing was a normal form of printing text from its invention by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid 15th century until the 19th century, and remained in wide use for books and other uses until the second half of 20th century. Letterpress printing remained the primary way to print and distribute information until the 20th century, when offset printing was developed, which largely supplanted its role in printing books and newspapers. All forms of data collection were affected by the invention of letterpress printing, as were many careers such as teachers, preachers, physicians and surgeons and artist engineers. More recently, letterpress printing has seen a revival. The process of letterpress printing consists of several stages. 1. Composition. 2. Imposition and lockup. 3. Printing. In a small shop, all would occur in a single room, whereas in larger printing plants such as with urban newspapers and magazines, each might form a distinct department with its own room or even floor. Relief printing. Relief printing is a process where protruding surface faces of the printing plate or block are inked. The recessed areas are ink free. Printing the image is therefore a relatively simple matter of inking the face of the matrix and bringing it in firm contact with the paper. A printing press may not be needed, as the back of the paper can be rubbed or pressed by hand with a simple tool such as a brayer or roller. The matrix in relief printing is classically created by starting with a flat original surface and then removing, example by carving away areas intended to print white. The remaining areas of the original surface receive the ink. The relief family of techniques include wood cut, metal cut, wood graving, relief etching, lino cut, rubber stamp, form printing, potato printing and some type of collagraph. Traditional text printing with mobile type is also a relief technique. This meant that wood cuts were much easier to use as book illustrations, as they could be printed together with the text. Intaglio illustrations such as engravings had to be printed separately. Relief printing is one of the traditional families of printmaking techniques, along with the intaglio and planographic families. Modern developments have created other types. In contrast, in the intaglio process, the recessed areas are the printed areas. The whole matrix is inked and the ink is then wiped away from the surface, so that it remains only in the recess. Much greater pressure is then needed to force the paper into the channels containing the ink, and a high pressure press will normally be required. Intaglio techniques include engraving, etching and dry point. With planographic techniques such as lithography, the entire surface of the matrix is flat and some areas are treated to create the print image. Normally, relief and intaglio techniques can only be mixed with others of the same family in the same work. India glue printing. India glue in visual arts is one of the 4 major classes of printmaking techniques, distinguished from the other 3 methods, relief printing, stenciling and lithography, by the fact that the ink forming the design is printed only from recessed areas of the plate. Among India glue techniques are engraving, etching, tri-point, aquaint and mezzotint. India glue printing is the opposite of relief printing in that the printing is done from ink that is below the surface of the plate. The design is cut, scratched or etched into the printing surface or plate, which can be copper, zinc, aluminum, magnesium, plastics or even coated paper. The printing ink is rubbed into the incisions or grooves and the surface is wiped clean. Unlike surface printing, India glue printing, which is actually a process of embossing the paper into the incised lines, requires considerable pressure. India glue processes are probably the most versatile of the print making methods, as various techniques can produce a wide range of effects. Virtually all India glue plates are printed by similar means using a roller press. This is essentially composed of 2 bearing rollers with a movable flat bed sandwiched horizontally between them. A viscous ink is forced into the incisions of the India glue plates with a roller and the excess ink is wiped away. The inked plate is laid face on the bed, a sheet of wet printing paper is laid over it and a blanket to ensure even pressure, and the blanket is draped over them both. Then the upper roller of the press is turned and the bed is drawn through. A pressure of several tons transmitted through the blanket presses the wet paper into the ink filled crevices of the plate, thus producing the printed image. There are 2 ways of making India glue prints in varied colors. In the method known as a la paupier French, that means with the dole, a dole shaped bundle of fabric is used to apply different colors to different areas of a single plate, which is then printed in the usual way. In the other method, separate plates, each carrying a different color, is successively overprinted on a single sheet of paper. When this multiple plate method is used, the printer must be careful to ensure that each successive color falls in its precise location. The most precise method of ensuring color registration involves the use of pinholes to check alignment. Screen printing. Screen printing is a printing technique whereby a mesh is used to transfer ink onto a substrate, except in areas made impermeable to the ink by a blocking stencil. A blade or squeegee is moved across the screen to fill the open mesh apertures with ink, and a reverse stroke then causes the screen to touch the substrate momentarily along a line of contact. This causes the ink to wet the substrate and be pulled out of the mesh apertures as a screen springs back after the blade has passed. Basically, it is a process of using a mesh based stencil to apply ink onto a substrate, whether it is t-shirts, posters, stickers, vinyl, wood or other material. Screen printing is also a stencil method of printmaking in which a design is imposed on a screen of polyester or other fine mesh with blank areas coated with an impermeable substance. Ink is forced into the mesh openings by the fill blade or squeegee and by wetting the substrate transferred onto the printing surface during the squeegee stroke. As a screen rebounds away from the substrate, the ink remains on the substrate. It is also known as silk screen, screen serigraphy and serigraph printing. One color is printed at a time, so several screens can be used to produce a multicolored image or design. Screen printing is more versatile than traditional printing techniques. The surface does not have to be printed under pressure, unlike etching or lithography, and it does not have to be a planar. Different inks can be used to work with a variety of materials such as textiles, ceramics, wood, paper, glass, metal and plastic. As a result, screen printing is used in many different industries including balloons, clothing, decals, medical devices, printed electronics including circuit board printing, product labels, signs and displays, snowboard graphics, textile fabrics, thick film technology.